Do you know what your personality type is? Does your personality affect your decision making? And what personality do you think a successful business leader has? If you ever wonder about that, then you want to stay tuned for this presentation. Hi everyone, my name is Jerry Huang. My group, including myself, Carson, Jay, and Igor, will present to you on how personality can affect your decision making. Myers-Briggs personality type can be categorized into 4 different categories: the optimist, the originator, the patriarch, and the pragmatist. And in our presentation, the 4 of us will cover 4 different categories. I will begin by telling you about the optimists and their decision-making process with the example of Oprah Winfrey. Carson will go over the originator and he will speak about Mark Cuban's decision-making process. Jay will cover the patriarch and he will use Warren Buffett as his example. And last but not least, Igor will cover Steve Jobs as a pragmatist. So who can be defined as an optimist? Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, also known as MBTI, says that it consists of personality of both intuition and feeling, which is N and F. Perfect example for this personality type is Oprah Winfrey. And before I begin by telling you all about Oprah, here's 3 questions I pick out from CNBC News The American Icon Quiz, Oprah Winfrey edition. It's called Can You Match Oprah Winfrey's Billionaire Business Savvy? And this quiz put you through Oprah Winfrey's place during some of her most pivotal decision-making moments, which ultimately lead her to become the first African-American female billionaire. So question number 1. You are faced with a major business decision and received advice from many people surrounding you. The sourcing process you should ultimately rely on is to, number 1, synthesize all the peer sources and come to the most rational decision. Number 2, go with your gut feeling first, and then go to the colleague you consider the expert on this issue and grant them veto power. And number 3, just simply go with your gut feeling. And if you were Oprah, you would pick number 3, simply go with your gut feeling. Oprah says, every decision that ever profited me has come from me listening to my inner voice first. And she calls that the emotional GPS. And she says, every time I got into a situation where I was in trouble, it's because I didn't listen to it. Question number 2, true or false? It's important to separate who you are from how you conduct business. And if you were Oprah, it will be false. You never separate who you are from how you conduct business. There's no real doing the world without being yourself first. And which is greater than yourself is far more important than what you do, but also what fuels what you do. And number 3, the Weight Watcher deal is the first endorsement deal Oprah ever did. And that is true. It's because Oprah rejected all the other endorsements that's what made her endorsement so much more valuable. She tried Weight Watchers and it actually worked, and that's why she endorsed it. So if you're Oprah, you're considered a great teacher. And Oprah is a great teacher to a lot of famous people in our time. She's considered the educator category specifically. And the best way to describe ENFJ and how they make their decisions. They have natural instinct to guide others and improve themselves and the community. They're often outspoken in the group and make decisions based on their feelings, their gut feelings, and they build trust and cooperate with a lot of different personality types. So how do we communicate with the optimists? Feel free to open up about your hope and futures and plans. They will give you their best advice. They play an active role to maintain their connections and they're incredible friends that help achieve their hope and dreams. They help others learn and grow, while at the same time and make themselves more emotionally intelligent. They're likely to manage a large team. So other people who are also considered the optimists, including Jennifer Lawrence, Barack Obama, and from Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen, not Emily Clark. And now I will turn you over to Carson, who will speak to you about the originator and their decision-making process.
Thank you, Jerry. Hello, everyone. As Jerry mentioned, my name is Carson Seelinger, and I'll be covering the originator personality today. Now, you may be asking yourself, what type of characteristics make up an originator? Myers-Briggs describes this category of personality as being extroverted, sensing, feeling, and perceiving, or just ESFP, according to their MBTI scale. The personality website, 16personalities.com, described this type of person as an entertainer. If anyone is to be found spontaneously breaking into song and dance, it is more than likely an ESFP personality. ESFPs often get caught up in the excitement of the moment, and they just want to bring everyone else along for the ride. ESFPs are very social people, and they often think that all the world is their stage. They tend to soak up the attention and make every outing feel like a party, because at the end of the day, they just want to have fun. They also tend to invest more in their outward appearance and possessions, such as driving fancy cars and having big homes, and they really don't mind a little bit of drama as long as the people are passionate about something. ESFPs aren't known for holding back either. They're known to be very bold and willing to step outside of their comfort zones, and they also tend to be very creative and original with their ideas. ESFPs use their excellent extroverted people skills to communicate well by paying attention to others and including them in their ideas. So not only do originators tend to get the party started, they're also very skilled in getting ideas off the ground, such as starting small businesses. As I looked at the different business leaders with this type of personality, one that stuck out to me was Mark Cuban. Not only was he hired to be a party promoter in his college years, but Cuban is a very successful, outgoing businessman that got his start by creating his own software company. This eventually led him to start another company, Broadcast.com, which ended up being acquired by Yahoo in 1999 for $5.7 billion. Now let's take a look at how the ESFP personality can influence decision making. The personality of an ESFP can be very intriguing in the workplace because they usually show a casual or cool attitude at work, and they prefer less structure that supports a just get it done type of attitude. This correlates with their decision making in that while they appreciate data and information, they ultimately rely on their instinct to make their decisions, and they make those decisions very quickly. They also tend to be very vocal by letting everyone know what they're thinking, and this can be really beneficial in a team setting or even a management role because each person is clear on the thoughts behind the decision and where the team is headed. Now, if you've ever watched the TV show Shark Tank, you've probably noticed how Mark Cuban is always one of the first sharks to offer feedback, whether it's warranted or not. He's always letting people know what he thinks about their product and, more importantly, their evaluation of their company. But even still, Mark is not a fan of letting negotiations carry on for too long. If an agreement isn't happening fast enough, he gives the person a timetable in which they can ultimately either accept his offer or the offer is going to be withdrawn. Now, ESFPs also tend to value personal considerations more than unbiased criteria. When making decisions, they often give more weight to social implications rather than to logic. This too can be seen on the TV show Shark Tank when Mark exercises the F in ESFP by feeling emotions from others and taking risks by making deals even when the money doesn't always make sense. A specific example of making a decision that had a lot of risk, a $285 million risk to be exact, was Cuban's purchase of the Dallas Mavericks in the year 2000. This deal took place just 7 months after selling his .com company, which brings us to our next point about ESFPs. They are easily bored. In the months after he sold his company, Cuban tried a few hobbies, but nothing really stuck. So it was when he and his wife were at a Mavericks game when he noticed that the dull and unenergized crowd, and he thought to himself, he's like, I can do this. I can do better than these guys, and I can really bring some good energy to this arena. A month later, he owned the team. Now this is intriguing because historically the Mavericks weren't really a good NBA team. They only won about 40% of their games, but Cuban and his ESFP personality completely changed the culture of that organization. He bought the team a new plane, he started putting them up in nicer hotels, and he started hosting dinners for the team, which made it a much more fun and enjoyable culture. Now, since we already know that ESFPs crave showmanship and performance, it should really be no surprise that one of the first major changes Cuban made as team owner was to exchange the owner suite in the top of the arena for courtside tickets right next to the action. In a way, Cuban became part of the team by being right in the middle of it, He was cheering on his players. But he is also known to speak his mind and let the referees know his opinion on whenever they blew calls. So actually, Bleacher Report gives us the information that he's been hit with 19 fines by the NBA since he took ownership of the Mavs, and 11 of those have actually been for interacting with the refs and criticizing their ability to make the right call. In total, he's actually been fined just under $2 million, which is more than 3 times as much as any other NBA owner. Now, making business decisions can be a very difficult process, no matter what personality we may have. While ESFPs possess great leadership skills such as being bold and creative and working really well with others, their decisions can often be pretty risky and not very well thought out. This is why it's important to understand the personality of ourselves and those around us so that we can make decisions to the best of our ability. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jay to discuss the patriarch personality of ISTJ.
Hi everyone, this is Jay. As we know, personality type and decision making go hand in hand. Ability to collaborate and make decisions is an important part of professional life. This decision making and the way we make this decision always depends on the personality type we are. No matter what kind of a logic we apply to make this decision, our personality always makes an important role. Thus, it's very crucial to understand the importance of personality in both personal and professional life. Today, I'm here to talk about the decision making of the personality type, the patriarch. People belonging to this group like rules to follow and desire structure. The people in this type can be a contributor, a defender, a manager, or an auditor. In a micro level, I would like to talk about the super investor and the philanthropist, Warren Buffett. Examining his life and structure of work, he falls under the Myers-Briggs category ISTJ, the auditor. Buffett sets a perfect example of being a philanthropist. Since 2001, he has contributed approximately $46 billion, and this paths to approximate 50 to 60% of his total fortune. He is also set to invest more in the next year billionaires annual meet for donation in Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. ISTJ personality types are strongly associated with their respect for facts. They utilize their sensing preferences and are known for practical, sensible, and systematic approach. To explain these characteristics, here is a point. Warren Buffett always uses fact-based and systematic approach in investing. He likes to follow a process of identifying outstanding companies in a sensible price through an in-depth fundamental analysis. He and his type like to follow or believe only in proven results and methods rather than in intuition and future hunch. ISTJ personality type are known for communicating and expressing through their thinking preferences. Once they have all their information for decision making through their sensing preferences, then they utilize their thinking preferences to go in for a logical and an objective approach. In case of Warren Buffett, he approaches his acquisitions and investments through an objective and logical approach rather than allowing any of his personal feelings or bias or any other things to interfere in his decisions. Through his holding company Berkshire Hathaway, he has acquired a lot of companies, which includes Fruit of the Loom, Jayco, Dairy Queen, and also he has invested in a lot of companies in the world including IBM, Coca-Cola, American Express, and Wells Fargo. ISTJ personality type are said to handle criticism very well. Even in the case of Warren Buffett, during the subprime crisis of 2007 and 2008, he was criticized very well on a lot of matters, including his investment strategies. Berkshire Hathaway suffered a major loss during that particular period, and also some of the companies in that subsidiary are still under losses. Warren Buffett's reaction to this downturn was very typical for his personality type, and he just called this as a poetic justice. As we know, with the strength comes the weaknesses. Few weaknesses of this category are being too rigid or not in tune with the feelings. This was the same with Warren Buffett as well. He loves money so much that it started interfering with his family for a long period of time. It disturbed his family relationship. This was because when he was young, his overall priority was to make money and he did not spend enough time with his family. This is a brief summary of personality type decision making considering Warren Buffett as an example. Thank you. My friend Igor will continue with the next part of presentation.
Hi, my name is Igor Kleiner, and I'll be concluding our presentation on personality types and decision making. My focus is on the pragmatist personality, and one of the most powerful examples is the late Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple. And for my primary source, I use the best-selling biography by Walter Isaacson titled Steve Jobs. But before I get into Jobs' tenure at Apple, I'd like to talk a little bit about his formative years, as his story is pretty remarkable. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 to a Catholic mother and a Muslim father. Due to family disagreements, they ended up giving the baby up for adoption. It was Paul and Clara Jobs that adopted Steve, and in fact, Paul Jobs was the one that instilled the love of engineering and design in young Steve. Later on in high school, Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak, and the two immediately clicked. And this partnership became the basis of what we now know as Apple. Now, what was Steve Jobs' personality type, and how did it impact his decision making? Well, according to Myers-Briggs, Steve Jobs would most closely fall into the pragmatist group, and his personality type is most often quoted as ENTJ. Now, E is for extroverted, and this can be apparent by his manipulation of the media and almost like a creation of a personality cult. He was extremely skillful at creating a lot of buzz around his products, and when he presented, he liked to use visuals and kept the message simple. However, he always baked a wow factor that just kept the media on their toes. Now, N is for intuitive. Jobs attributed his early years in college and introduction to Zen Buddhism as the main factors in developing his intuition. T is for thinking, and this group tends to make decisions in a logical and objective fashion. And finally, J is for judging. Now, Jobs was decisive, but he was often uncompromising, almost to a fault. He was an extremely controlling boss, and he's been known to throw temper tantrums and fire people on the spot. He was just an absolute perfectionist. He would agonize over the smallest details for days. For example, during the design process of the Apple II computer and later the Apple stores, he obsessed over every detail, including the furnishings, the color use, the shape, and even the customer experience of unpacking the product. At the same time, he was a visionary. His ideas for iPod, iPhone, iPad were always met with harsh criticism, but his ideas changed the way we interact with technology. For example, he was adamant about not having a phone stylus, which seemed almost an impossible task at that time, but Jobs relied on his intuition and made it happen. But like practically no other individual, Jobs' personality was fully reflected in his creations. And towards the end of his life, he was able to witness Apple become the most valuable company in the world, finally surpassing Microsoft. So, In this presentation, we focused on 4 different personality types. Jerry covered the optimist type with Oprah Winfrey. Carson covered Mark Cuban with the originator type. Jay focused on Warren Buffett as the patriarch. And I covered Steve Jobs as the pragmatist. Thank you for your time and attention.